There are very few new vehicles that are as game-changing as the Hyundai Ioniq 5. And it's not only game-changing for the Hyundai brand, it's not only game-changing for the world of battery electric vehicles, but I think it might be game-changing for the entire automotive industry. We're going to drive it, we're going to find out what it's like compared with competition from the Tesla Model Y to the Ford Mustang Mach-E to the Volkswagen ID.4, and talk about the value. Because there is a ton of value in this new vehicle. But first, let's get it on the road and see what it's like to drive. Let's see how the acceleration is in the all-electric Hyundai Ioniq 5. So, they say 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds in this model. Let's see how that feels in the real world. I'm gonna floor it in 3, 2, 1, floored. Oh, 30, 40, 50, 60 there. Oh. So what are we dealing with? That was a little rocket. 320 horsepower out of a 2-motor setup. So there's a motor in the front and a motor in the rear. Now you can get this car in both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. This one being the 2-motor is an all-wheel drive configuration. And you do get that snappy electric car acceleration. Now it does taper off right around 45 or 50 miles an hour. It's not going to break your neck like a Model Y Performance would continue to do, or perhaps a Mach-E GT, but the passing power is enough to send every item in the car flying toward the rear trunk gate. So lots and lots of instant torque, and it's smooth.
This video is brought to you by Manscaped.com. You know, I love Manscaped because they give you tools, solutions for the 3 odor zones, the body, butt, and balls. They just launched their new Lawnmower 4.0 waterproof electric trimmer, and now you can get it with the ultimate Manscaped experience when you purchase their new Performance Package 4.0 bundle. This is an all-in-one kit that includes all the tools to perfect your body grooming experience. From your morning shower to late night, be ready for anything moments. After your shower, be sure to apply Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, a quick-absorbing, clear-drying moisturizer lotion for all-day protection. For that midday refresher, be sure to pack your Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray with cooling aloe vera and anti-inflammatory properties. The new Performance Package 4.0 bundle now includes their new Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. For a limited time, you can get 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs. Don't wait until next year. Go to manscaped.com and use my promo code FASTLANECAR to get 20% off plus free international shipping plus 2 free gifts. Join the Manscaped movement today. The Performance Package 4.0, it says it all. Your body and balls will thank you.
So now that we've slowed down a little bit, let's talk a little bit more about the Ioniq 5 driving experience. This is not meant to be a straight line drag strip conqueror. It's not meant to be a canyon carver. This is more meant to be a comfortable, luxurious, refined, and tech-savvy family car. And it really does that very well. So what we're looking at here are dual 12-inch screens, one for the driver and one, of course, for the main infotainment screen. The driver display shows you all the relevant information, speed, it shows you your charge, and then all the trip stuff is in there as well. Now the main 12-inch info screen is, of course, where you're gonna find your navigation, your climate control screens, you're gonna find your phone connectivity, your Apple CarPlay, that's all in there. Very easy to use, works very, very well. And if you're used to like a Hyundai Tucson or any of the new Hyundai screens, this is gonna make a lot of sense to you really, really quickly. Now, we do have a little stretch of kind of canyon road here. We are still in sport mode. Might as well see how this vehicle performs. After I just said it's not a canyon carver, but surprisingly competent, although when you push it, you do feel the weight and the size of the vehicle. And I'm very okay with that actually, because I'm a little tired of like the Tesla ride quality, even like the standard Model 3 and the standard Tesla Model Y long range. They're just so firm and they're so incredibly stiff. So it's nice being in the Hyundai, which yeah, it's a little bit more roly-poly, but when you're driving it around every single day, this is the ride quality I prefer. 10 out of 10 times I would take this ride over a Tesla ride. in everyday situations because it's compliant and it's more soft and it's much more sorted, and you can hit big bumps and the car doesn't feel like it's going to jitter to 1,000 pieces. So it's a very, very sorted ride quality in the Hyundai Ioniq 5. And honestly, might as well take it out of sport mode because this is not a car to be setting lap time records in. It's just meant to be a cruiser. And as a cruiser, it's beautifully quiet. So Hyundai says that this car is something like 4 decibels quieter compared to the Tesla. They rated the Tesla like 67. This is more like 63. And sure enough, at 50, 55 miles an hour, dead silent. This is like approaching Mercedes ES class levels of refinement. It really is that quiet.
Now, one of the cool things about the Ioniq 5 is the regenerative braking capability. What I mean by that is when you let off the throttle, there are actually a few levels of regen that put electricity back into the battery. Now, at the base level is level 0. You let off the throttle and the car will coast like a traditional gasoline car, and then you use the brake like any other car. But then there's levels 1, 2, and 3. And the higher you go up in the level, the more the car will slow down when you let off the throttle, and the more electricity will be delivered back into the battery pack. And then there's an iPedal function, which is a true one-footed driving experience. You let go of the throttle and it will bring the car to a complete stop and quickly. Now, you change the regen levels by using paddle shifters on the 2-spoke steering wheel, which is really cool. So there's a paddle on the left and a paddle on the right, and then an indicator in the middle that shows you what level you have selected.
Now, Hyundai calls this a crossover SUV. I am not so sure, to be brutally honest, but whatever you call it, this thing is an incredible piece of design. It's futuristic, it's retro all at the same time. It's beautifully executed. The proportions are incredible. What they did is they pushed the wheels all the way out to the corners of the car. And what that does is make the car look smaller than it is in person. So it's got kind of a nice 1980s hot hatch feel when you see it from a distance, but when you get up close, you realize, well, it really isn't all that much smaller than something like a Tesla Model Y. It does have an insanely long wheelbase though, because the wheels are right at the corners. So the wheelbase on this vehicle is longer than a 2020 Chevy Tahoe. That's how long the wheelbase is, but it gives it these cool kind of concept car proportions with the short overhangs. In the front, we've got these very squared off headlight main beams. Just looks fantastic, super aggressive. You see these perfect little squares and these perfect little rectangles throughout the grille. That's carried over throughout the vehicle pretty much. I love these wheels, 20-inch wheels, the largest wheels ever fitted to a Hyundai electric car in the back. You can see that little square motif continues. Ioniq 5 written across this clear lamp. Got these like louvers in the rear tail. Just a beautiful piece of design. So what you may have noticed there, it does have a very kind of complicated key. So the door handles will pop out as you walk up to the vehicle, and then when you lock it, they will retract in. Same thing with the mirrors. And then this car also has Smart Park. So what that means is that you can remote start it and then use the key to essentially walk the car forward and back, which is a really cool feature. So if you're jammed into like a parking spot, push a button on the key and the car will move remotely without you doing anything. How crazy is that? But that is just the beginning of the technology, because it goes so much further than that.
Let's talk about the range specs on the Ioniq 5, because of course how far it can go on a single charge is a pretty big deal in the world of EV. So on the base end of the spectrum is the standard range rear-wheel drive Ioniq, 220 miles according to the EPA. Up from there is the long-range rear-wheel drive, 303 miles on the EPA cycle, and then finally the one we're driving today, the all-wheel drive model, 256 miles according to the EPA. That's out of a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery. So on paper, it is kind of mid-pack against its competition. So the Hyundai all-wheel drive 256, the Tesla all-wheel drive 326, the Ford extended range all-wheel drive 270, and the Volkswagen all-wheel drive 240 miles. But of course, we're gonna have to get all of these cars out in the real world and see just what that means in actual traffic and in the winter and in the summer, and see what these vehicles will perform like. 256 I think is plenty. It is plenty for the average driver. How often do you really drive more than 250 miles in a single day? As long as you have a place to plug it in at home overnight, this vehicle should be perfectly fine for daily commuting and even longer trips, because the charging is crazy. We'll get to that a little bit later. One of the coolest features in the Ioniq 5 is something called V2L, which stands for Vehicle to Load. You can essentially use the Ioniq 5 as a ginormous power bank. You can use the electricity in the battery to power other things like tailgating. Maybe you need to charge a computer or a phone or whatever. Now they will sell you an adapter that plugs into the charge port, and then you can use that to power your life. Now it is still like a standard 3-prong wall outlet, but unlike a lot of other kind of in-car power plugs that might be rated at like 400 watts, maybe 600 watts or 800 watts, this is rated for nearly 2,000 watts. So it is a pretty juicy amount of power. And the cool thing is, as my friend Miriam found out, you can actually use it to charge another Ioniq. That's how much power it will output. So check out Miriam at this Twitter handle. Miriam also has a really good podcast. A big thanks to Miriam for sending me this video.
This is a Hyundai Ioniq 5 and it's charging another one right now. So there's this mode here, vehicle to load, which lets you use this adapter that has a regular outlet in it and plug anything you want into it. And then in here is the charging adapter for the other car. And here's the cable going to the other car. And as you can see, charging the other car right there. As you can see, the LEDs happily charging.
All right, now let's talk about the most impressive Hyundai Ioniq spec. The charging capability. I'm talking DC fast charging capability. Hyundai rates this vehicle at a maximum of 235 peak kilowatts of DC fast charging. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that this is one of the quickest charging new EVs on the market. It's an 800 volt system, by the way, so Teslas run on 400 volts. This is 800 volts, which means you can get crazy power into the battery. Now, they did send us this little comparison sheet to the competition, so let's take a look at this. They say 10 to 80% on a 350 kilowatt charger in just 18 minutes in the Hyundai, compared to 45 minutes for the Ford and 30 minutes for the Tesla on a V3 supercharger. 18 minutes from 10 to 80%. Now we're of course gonna get it back here to Colorado in person and see how that works in the real world, but that is absurdly quick technology and something to be extremely excited about. Level 2 charging, by the way, at home, if you have the right 240 volt plug, 6 hours and 43 minutes. Pretty darn quick as well.
Now let's see how the autonomous technology is. We do have adaptive cruise control, of course, in this model. And one of kind of the interesting things about this adaptive cruise control is they say it's been designed to learn your driving habits. So if it knows that you don't like big gaps between you and the car in front of you, if it knows that you like to be pretty snappy on accelerating to minimize those gaps, the car will learn that and mimic your driving behavior. In terms of lane keep assist, same thing. The automated steering assistant, right, which will help you maintain the center of the lane, is actually designed to know its surroundings. And if it senses a truck drifting toward you, it'll actually change lane position depending on the surroundings of the vehicle, which is very cool. Now it is of course still level 2. You still have to have your hand on the steering wheel at all times or it will disengage very quickly. It's not meant to be a full self-driving thing, but the lane centering that Hyundai uses is very effective and very cool. And then of course we have like blind spot monitoring, the usual emergency forward braking, and it also is more sophisticated now, like it'll stop for cyclists potentially as well if you're about to turn into a cyclist, which is cool. And then the rear, it's got the cross traffic alert and all the safety gear in this car. I would say even more than Tesla because like I'm not a huge fan of Tesla's integration of their blind spot monitoring in the middle screen. Having it on the mirror is old school, but it is much better in my opinion. Now one thing I am a little curious about is, let me go into the navigation here. Let me, for example, search for a place. So what I've done here is I've plugged in Boulder, Colorado into the navigation, which of course is well more than 151 miles from San Diego, California, where we're at right now. And it says search for stations, because of course we need to stop and charge. And it's coming up with a plan on how it's going to get us to Colorado. But it's not doing a very good job of that. It's recommending AC stops as well. Yeah, that's not great. Like Tesla, if you plugged in a destination, it would be like, stop here at this supercharger for 19 minutes, then go to this supercharger, and then go to this one. This is a little bit more primitive. So that's not quite as good as like a Tesla. So under the hood, no front trunk, or is there? That is the front storage area in the Ioniq 5. So just a little flap, maybe put some hot dogs in there, some buns or something, but not a very large front trunk. But that's not too big of an issue because it does have an extremely large rear trunk, which I think is what most folks are going to be looking for anyway. So power liftgate in this model, you can see seats fold down, 3 abreast seating in the back. It's got the little view blocker here, so very good cargo capacity in the rear of the vehicle.
That brings us to the most impressive part of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the price. The base price, $39,700 for the short range rear wheel drive, $43,650 for the long range rear wheel drive, and $47,150 for the starting price on the all wheel drive. This is a heck of a lot of car for the mid $40,000 range before tax credits, because of course you can get the full $7,500 if you apply, which is just crazy value. I mean, this car, the one I was driving was loaded, so we're probably looking at like low 50s. I didn't have the exact pricing, but probably low 50s to mid 50s. But when you consider that's before the tax credit, and then a Tesla Model Y will start in the $60,000 range, it's so impressive. The levels of refinement, the driving assistance technology, the build quality just blows Tesla out of the water, in my opinion, in terms of how the fit and finish feels, the panel gaps, the interior material qualities are just incredible. It's better than the Volkswagen, in my opinion. It's better than the Ford. It's more usable than all those vehicles. What an incredible value. Now, I know on paper, the 0 to 60 time 5 seconds, the range 256 in this model, not earth-shattering, but just the fit and finish, the quality, the packaging is superb. $1,200 destination fee, by the way, and then we get to the warranty. 10-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty, 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. This is such good value, guys. Such incredible value for one of the coolest looking cars on the entire market, with an incredible ride, a very sophisticated powertrain, great charging. This car, in my opinion, absolute winner. Put this at the top of your list if you're looking for an all-electric crossover. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. As always, this has been Tommy with TFL Car. Check out tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.